Hello guys, my name is KressleKey and I want to be the very best that I can be. And today I am here with week 3 trades and transactions. I just want to put out a brief disclaimer. The week 3 trades and transactions are the transactions available going into week 4. So the reason I'm saying this is just because there was a bit of confusion around a Padders trade that was on the website. This was actually supposed to be available for week 4. However, Padders and the other coaches agreed that it could be available for week 3. So even though it was agreed to be available for week 3, it is now available for week 4 and we will be discussing it today. So now that we've got all of that out of the way, I'm really happy to start getting into these trades and transactions for this week because there's quite a few coming up. I hope you're all ready. So the first person we're going to talk about is Padders. So I got a lot of feedback from you guys from last week's video, and you guys said that you wanted to talk about the teams before and after, and you also wanted to see a picture of the teams before and after. So we are going to do that today. So today we are talking about Padders, whose previous team was Tapu Koko, Hippowdon, Snorlax, Excavalier, Drifblim, Mega Gyarados, Terrakion, Typhlosion, Venomoth, and Swoobat. So, as you can see with Padders' team right now, he doesn't really have any of the main cores that you might see about Draft League. I know some coaches don't like cores, and for some it works great, and for others it doesn't work so great. But he is missing a Fire Water Grass core, and also is not really having his Dragon Fairy Steel core there either. But what he has done this week is he has traded Drifblim for a Alolan Exeggutor. Now, I kind of really like this trade coming out from Padders. He gets his Dragon type, and he also gets his Grass type. I think the biggest problem with a Alolan Exeggutor is it is 4 times weak to Ice, so any mon running Hidden Power Ice can really do damage to Alolan Exeggutor, even if it has a berry, and I think that's a real problem in Draft League, because that's something you really gotta be careful of, because Hidden Power is really common in Draft League, because it always gives you that coverage that you need. But it also does work really well under Trick Room, and I'm looking at Padders' rest of his team, and there are mons on there that really shine under a Trick Room, like mons like Snorlax, Excavalier, stuff like that that can really take advantage of being a bit slower. The only problem is the only mon on Padders' team, I believe, that can set the Trick Room is the Alolan Exeggutor itself. Even though this mon is extremely slow, I do believe that Padders can be able to use this really well. A Choice Specs Alolan Exeggutor is going to do so much damage. It's got base 125 special attack. You drop a Draco on something with a Choice Specs, that is major damage unless it is a fairy type or something that's really resistant. But even then it's going to do so much damage. Leaf Storm as well, it also gets Flamethrower and obviously Stab in Giga Drain. So I really do think that in the right situations, Alolan Exeggutor can pull up really strong for Padders' team. I do believe that the Alolan Exeggutor pick, even though it might not be the best Grass and it might not be the best Dragon out there, it's a really solid pick to replace Drifblim on the team. It also gets rid of another flying type on Padders' team. He does have a Venomoth and a Swoobat, both which are weak to rocks, and having a bunch of mons that are weak to rocks is really not that great because hazards are so prevalent in the draft format. So I think getting rid of Drifblim and making sure that he doesn't have too many weaknesses to rocks is also a big plus for him, especially since he's replacing it with something that does resist rocks. So if I've missed anything out, what do you guys think about the Padders transactions? Leave a comment down below and tell me, do you think that Alolan Exeggutor is going to be able to pull through for Padders? And with that, we are moving on to our second transaction, or transactions technically, of the week. We have Dan, aka A-Drive, dropping his Shaman for a Venusaur and Zoroark for a Alolan Persian. I think this is a really interesting trade. I'll go through Dan's former team really quickly. He had Kieran Black, Florges, Shaman, Alolan Persian, Talonflame, Passimian, Manectric, Skarmory, Gastrodon, and Lycanroc Dust. I am actually really interested to discuss and see what you guys think about A-Drive's transactions going into this week, because I think that dropping Shaman is honestly not the best thing he could have done. I understand that he does need that poison type, and having that poison stab is really good, and Venusaur in its own right is a really good mon, but Shaman is just so hard to justify dropping just because it has access to some of the most powerful moves in draft format. It's got access to Seed Flare, which is so good to just spam when you come in, and gets possibly special defense drops, which can really cripple some of the woes of teams trying to come in and counter it. And Shaman can also be run in a variety of different ways. So stuff like, substitute Shaman, Leech Seed Shaman, and also really offensive Shaman also works really well. However, I have used Venusaur before, and I really do think Venusaur is good, but it really shines under the sun, which Dan lacks to reliably set for this team. So I feel like Venusaur's viability dies a bit because some of the best Venusaur sets I know are sets where it's running Chlorophyll in the sun with growth and 3 attacks, even Life Orb. With that, That is a Venusaur set that I know works well, but I don't think that Dan can reliably set that up, which is really a shame because I think that's where Venusaur shines the best. Obviously, we all know that Dan is a really smart guy, and there's definitely ways that I think that he knows what he's doing and he's gonna pull it off somehow. He's gonna make Venusaur work with his team. He's doing so well in the season so far. He's 2-0 at the moment. So guys, I believe that Dan will be able to make this pick work, but I really do question if it's going to pay off for him in the end. The next thing that he did was he dropped Alolan Persian for Zoroark. I actually really do like this pick because while I do think Alolan Persian is its good in its own mon, Zoroark has so many strengths as well. It really makes the opponent think. You can play mind games with Zoroark with its ability, and it really makes your opponent question every single move they make, and I think someone like Dan is going to be really good at taking advantage of that. Dan has always been a smart player. He always seems to make the right decisions in battles, so I think that him playing with Zoroark is an easy opportunity for the opponent to be questioning all the time, is this thing a Zoroark? Is it just going to U-turn? Is it Choice Specs? Is it just going to Flamethrower me? Is it just going to Dark Pulse? And possibly use that to get Zoroark to set up when the opponent doesn't know if it's Zoroark or not. It just stays in, sets up a nasty play, and does a lot of work for Dan's team. So I do really like the drop for Alolan Persian for Zoroark, even though I do think that Alolan Persian is obviously a good mon. It has great abilities, it's got great speed tier, it's got a great move pool, but I do really think that Dan's going to work well with Zoroark, so I do think that this transaction will probably work out for him. The one I'm most interested about is, do you guys think that the Shaman for the Venusaur was the right thing for Dan to do, and why not, or why? I know I am asking you guys a lot of questions, but I am genuinely interested to read the comments and read your thoughts about what you think these picks are going to be. So, with that, we're going to be moving on to the third trade and transaction, and I'm just going to say I can't believe the Draft League has let this happen. The WBE has let Kelly pick up Alolan Persian. So, the trade and transaction that Kelly made this week is he dropped his Pangoro and he picked up Alolan Persian. Pangoro is a pretty decent mon, but have any of you seen Kelly play with Alolan Persian? I urge you to go back and watch some of his previous draft leagues where he's drafted this thing. Kelly knows how to use Alolan Persian. The fact that they've allowed him to pick this up, Kelly is going to be such a force to be reckoned with now. Alolan Persian provides so much support for Kelly's team. It's got access to Parting Shot, which is such a good move, and it really helps his setup mons like Zerk, Zygarde, and even maybe Superior to get in and start clicking those Leaf Storms when it knows it can to get those contrary boosts. I just think that Persian works so well with Kelly's team. It provides amazing speed. It provides a dark type that obviously he dropped Pangoro. He still picked up a dark type, so it still works amazing with his team. And I don't really have much to say on this, except go watch some of Kelly's older draft league videos where he has used Alolan Persian, and you will see how well he has used this mod, and that's going to speak for itself on why this is an amazing trade and transaction. Okay, so summing up Kelly's team, we have him with his Zygarde 50%, his Milotic, his Darmanitan, his Mesprit, his Wigglytuff, Aggron, Superior, Xurkitree, now Alolan Persian in for Pangoro and Frogadier. I should have probably said his team before, but that is his team now, and I did talk a little bit about how he can set up easier with mons using the Parting Shot with his Alolan Persian. But that is Kelly's team, and I honestly think that Kelly's team is so scary and that all the other coaches in the WBE should be looking out for this guy. Alright, moving on to the final trade and transaction this week, we have Iron Buffoon. And let me just tell you that I think Iron Buffoon probably got the best steal out of everyone in the trades and transactions. Probably just only slightly better than Kelly's pickup of Alolan Persian. So, do we all remember that Shaman that Dan, aka A-Drive, just dropped earlier in this video? Well, it has been picked up, and it has been picked up by Iron Buffoon for his Smeargle. Now, let me just tell you his team before. Iron Buffoon had Weavile, Suicune, Metagross, Blaziken with Blaze ability, Rhydon, Altaria, Jolteon, Staraptor, Smeargle, and Spiritomb. So that was his team before. So you can see that he didn't actually have a grass type at the start of this, but now he's just picked up, I think honestly, one of the best grass types in Draft League. There's obviously higher tiered, but Shaman is always something you've really got to look at, because I said it before when I was talking about how Dan dropped it and how I wasn't so sure about that. Shaman is just so versatile. It can be run in a variety of different ways, and it has really good coverage, something I didn't discuss before. It gets access to Earth Power. Obviously you can run Hidden Power for coverage, but the access to Earth Power and stuff like Seed Flare, which is such a strong grass move, really shows that Shaman can be run, and it can be run effectively, and it is something that the other team does need to, like, you can't just kind of gloss over Shaman in prep. You really do have to sit down and say, what is going to be my Shaman check if it is bulky? What am I going to do to be able to come in and kill it if it's really offensive? So Buffoon now has his fire, water, and grass core, and I think it's really good. He's got Swooking Blaziken, and he's got Shaman, which is a really good blend of being able to attack and also being quite bulky, because we all know Swooking can be so annoying with how bulky that thing is. So I really do like this pickup for Iron Buffoon. I think it gives him a little bit more bulk to a team that really didn't have much bulk before. I know he's got stuff like Rhydon, but like stuff like Rhydon also has like 4 times weaknesses to water and grass, so it really does help his team to have kind of a bulky mon that doesn't have any 4 times weaknesses. I think that's going to be very pivotal in Iron Buffoon going forward. So guys, what do you think of this transaction? Because I genuinely think that this is like the best transaction of this week, but I could be wrong. I think the Kelly one is really close. I think A-Drives is a bit interesting, but I also think that Pat has made some pretty good choices with his moves as well.
Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy AAR220. Just throwing this in at the end of the video because, as you guys heard earlier, Kress mentioned the last transaction being Iron Buffoons, but the last transaction of the week actually goes to the Heathen Bow, coach of the Toronto Togekiss, and he is actually dropping Aromatisse and Pyroar for Palisand and Linoon. So, personally, I like these transactions a lot for most team. Most full team, for perspective, is Latios, Raikou, Blastoise, Cobalion, Linoon, Uxie, Whimsicott, Frostlass, Palisand, and Mega Absol. So with these trades, of course, most team is a little bit Ghost Weak between the Palisand, the Frostlass, and the Latios, and also Uxie. His team definitely has a little bit of issues with possible offensive Ghost type, let's say, because even though he does have Mega Absol, which is a great way around a lot of Ghosts, they can obviously carry coverage to things like Focus Blast and Dazzling Gleam, which can pressure Mega Absol pretty well. So that is, of course, a little bit of a detriment in terms of the weakness defensively. However, he does still have a great way around Dark types at the very least, which would also pressure his team through things like Cobalion and even Mega Absol coverage with moves like Play Rough. So he's not necessarily hurting that much, and it is a 28 mon draft, so with Ghost and Dark being types that are very hard to get good ones of, it's not the worst weakness for his team to have, and he does have ways to get around it at the very least. Linoon, on the other hand, I think was actually a very good pickup for Mo, because unlike Pyro, it's an actually very bringable normal type to a lot of games. This will help with the Ghost weakness because it's a Ghost immunity at the very least, which will be very helpful on the defensive side. Not only that, but it gives him actually really spammable priority, because right now his only other priority in the roster would be through Mega Absol Sucker Punch, which is reliant on your opponent clicking an offensive move, of course, and otherwise it's E-Speed from Raikou, which running E-Speed would mean that you're running a Rash Nature on that, which isn't necessarily the best thing to give away to your opponent, that you're running a Rash Nature on Raikou, because that of course does help give away your speed tier, but also it gives away what defensiveness you have in terms of Spadef, because you obviously know they're going to be a minus Spadef set, which helps you run calcs easier, helps you figure out items easier as well. So it gives them actual reliable priority, and base 100, of course, a very nice speed tier to hit. Most team actually did not have a base 100 mon before this, Pyro being the closest he had to it at base 106 if I'm not mistaken, and then the gap goes down to UC at 95, which doesn't usually run a lot of speed anyway. So there's definitely a somewhat decent gap there, forcing UC to maybe have to run some speed, but having Linoon at this speed tier is great. Base 100 is one of the most important speed tiers in draft in my opinion, and having a mon that not only hits that, but priority as well, and it even gets a really nice setup through Belly Drum, which is actually really good, because on the physical end, Mo's only setup is SD Mega Absol, and Mega Absol can definitely run Sword Dance really efficiently, sure, but it's the fact that it has a lot of coverage moves that it usually needs in some games to where it can't necessarily afford to run it, and otherwise it's Dragon Dance Latios or Cobalion with SD, and Cobalion on most teams is definitely a lot better of a pivot on this team in general, though it could have been a possible breaker, but having Linoon, of course, takes pressure off of Mega Absol and Cobalion. Otherwise, he's running DD Latios, and Latios in this team could definitely benefit from being a special mon, or just a Trick Scarfer, or just a Scarfer in general. So having Linoon, of course, takes pressure off of the physical setup on Mo's roster, and it's physical setup with reliable priority, which is amazing for any team to have, in my opinion. So that will be the end of the trades and transactions this week. If you guys did enjoy, leave a like down below. Make sure to comment your thoughts on everyone's transactions. We had a ton of them this week, and a lot of them were so amazing for a lot of these coaches. And I'm hoping that the ones that are doing really hot continue to do hot, and the ones that aren't doing hot can maybe bounce back. And we'll find out in the coming weeks how they do. Until next time, it has been your boy AAR220, and I'm signing out. Peace out, guys.